It's a testament to 2020 that I'm going into this video with no notes, the light's about to go, no makeup, just, you know, it's a reflection. This year I read 62, potentially 63. I'm recording this on the 31st and I might finish a book today, but I don't think it'll make it on this list. So 62, 63 books this year, and honestly I feel like there are some really good ones here, but only one or two I think are like favorite books. So a decent reading year, a lot of like 3-4 stars, but you know, I had a good time. First, I want to talk about my 2 favorite middle grade books I read this year. I don't read a ton of middle grade, but when I do, I try and make it diverse and also just something that I think will really touch me, and these 2 definitely did. The first one is King and the Dragonflies by Kayley Calendar, and this I think is like a must read for middle grade readers. It's just so sweet. It's about a boy whose brother has died and turned into a dragonfly, and that combined with him exploring his sexuality and trying to figure out his sexuality is just like it's just a really moving, great book about family, and highly recommend that one. The other one is The Only Black Girls in Town by Brandy Colbert. I love Brandy Colbert, and this was just a really cute book about a young girl who's the only black girl in her seaside Californian town, and then another black girl moves into a house on her street, and it's about their friendship and a mystery they uncover in the house that this girl moves into. Both very good, and I highly recommend if you have young readers, if you like reading middle grade, if you're a teacher, anything like that. Also, probably my favorite nonfiction this year was Eloquent Rage, A Black Feminist Discovers Her Superpower by Brittany Cooper. This was a really great look at feminism through the lens of a black woman, and it's almost written for other black women, but also it's just like a really empathetic, great educational voice without like spoon feeding it. I just thought it was really good. That was probably my favorite nonfiction that I read this year. Did not read enough nonfiction, but that was a fave, so recommend that one. There's no real order to this. I'll probably save my favorite few for the end, but no real order in the rest of them. First one I have here is Normal People by Sally Rooney. This didn't come out this year, but the show did, and I did really enjoy the show, but I also just really enjoyed the book. I know this is quite a polarizing book. A lot of people thought it was boring or didn't like the relationship, and I wouldn't say I loved the relationship, but I loved the exploration of relationships in this book. I thought it was really powerful. I don't know, this was really impactful to me when I read it, and I have nothing really to say. I have no notes, SOS. Next one is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, another one that did not come out this year, but was about pandemics, and so I decided to pick it up. By the way, if you don't know about Normal People, this is the story of a boy and a girl in school, and they are seeing one another but keeping it from everyone in school, and it kind of just follows their relationship as they go through university and grow up together and not together, and yeah. And Station 11 is about, there's a pandemic and it hits like the entire world, but we follow a troupe of actors as about, I think it's like 20 years after, yeah, 20 years after the pandemic kills off most of the population. And so we follow this troupe of actors as they travel through what is left of America, and it's just about humanity and the things that we hold dear and the things that we memorialize, and it was just really great, especially to read during Gestures Wildly. The next one I listened to an audiobook of and don't actually have the physical copy, but it's Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. This is one that I think took the world by storm this year, a debut novel about a black woman, a black like 20 something who is a babysitter, like a nanny for this white family, and she has one of the kids at the grocery store with her, and someone accuses her of like stealing the kid, and the police are called, and it's this huge thing, and then the white mom has to deal with what that means for her and what that means for her like anti-racism and lack thereof, and it's just a really good satire almost, and just look at racism in America. I thought it was really funny and weird. Like it had a strange quality about it that really took me by surprise. And yeah, it was just really funny. I think this is a really important novel to read, and also like a very different one that I hadn't read anything really like it before. The audiobook was also pretty good. I should pick up a physical copy sometime. I also really enjoyed part of Such a Fun Age where the main character is like 26 and about to lose her parents' health insurance, and she's like a struggling 20-something, and I thought that that was written so well. I remember just like feeling that on a visceral level, so really like that element of it too. The next one is a very upsetting novel, but one that I have to talk about because I found it deeply impactful, and that is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. I absolutely love this cover. I think it's just beautiful. This is the UK edition, by the way. It's also like a really large paperback trim size. This is the story of a teenage girl who falls in love with her professor, or her teacher rather, and they form a relationship, and then it is about the echoes of that relationship throughout her life, and her examining the manipulation that went on in her life and like how that's affected her relationships since then. And it's just so sad, so sad. And if you've ever been in any sort of like manipulative, abusive relationship, this will be very hard to read, but also it was just like weirdly vindicating and beautiful. And do I recommend it? I don't know, because it's not a fun, enjoyable reading experience, but really, really well written. So there's that. I think this might also be a debut, and I will definitely be reading more by this author because this was just impeccably written. Next one is Nina LaCour, who is one of my favorite authors, probably maybe my favorite YA author, definitely up there. This is a ghost story. It's the story of this 18-year-old who graduates high school and then moves to do an internship on this farm in like a rural seaside Californian town. And it's also a ghost story. There are ghosts that live on this farm, and she lives with other kind of fostered children and kind of people who have different traumas, and it's an exploration of trauma and grief and the manifestation of that, and it's just beautiful. Nina LaCour's writing is just so good. One of my favorite books ever is We Are Okay. By the way, this is like my favorites shelf, so you can tell that like it's been picked through for this video. But Nina LaCour is just, her writing is incredible. This feels more like literary fiction than it does YA, so I definitely say it's more like literary YA, and it's brief. All her books are so short, but just beautiful. So really recommend this one as well. I'm gonna say that at the end of all of these, I think. All right, down to the last 5 here. Next one up is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. I assume this is going to be on many people's, ooh, spoilers there, on a lot of people's lists this year. The Mothers by Britt Bennett was one of my favorite books of 2017, 16, one of the two. And this is also fantastic. This is set in a town called Mallard, and the history of this town is that the original person who moved to this town was like a light-skinned black man, and throughout the years the population has become increasingly light-skinned, and kind of how that affects the psyche of the people who live there and the black community that lives there, and how that takes a toll on them. And the two sisters, they're twin sisters that are always inseparable, and then when they're teenagers they run away from the town, and then they end up separating. One goes on to live life as a white woman, and the other one lives life as a black woman, and kind of you see how the threads of that and their children and how different their lives are, and how they come back together potentially, or how they avoid one another. It's really, really interesting. Great historical fiction. I don't read a whole lot of historical fiction, but this moves into more modern times, and it was just fantastic. And I highly recommend picking it up if you haven't already, but I feel like a lot of people already have because everyone has been talking about it, and because it's stunning. And look at this cover. It's so good. This might be my favorite cover of the year also. Next up is a sequel, the only sequel on this list. I don't read a whole lot of series. This is A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor by Hank Green. An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green was one of my favorite books. Was that last year, 2 years ago? So good. Hank's writing is so charming and funny, but also so clever, and this duology is just really well written, and it's science fiction. I'm not going to say too much about the plot of this because it picks up after the first one leaves off, but if you're at all interested, it's about a 20-something who, the first book is about a 20-something who discovers this robot statue near where she works in New York City and makes a video of it, and it goes viral, and it's about how going viral and online celebrity kind of takes over your life and the impact that has on a person. And also it's science fiction and aliens, and it's very good. So this was a fantastic follow-up to that, and I really enjoyed it. So that was great. It was one of those books that I found myself like being like, okay, I'll read for about 10 minutes, and then suddenly an hour would go by and I'd be like, oh shoot, I have things to do. Okay, top 3 probably. First one, Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. Bernardine Evaristo, I think, is set to be one of my favorite authors, and I've only read this one book and part of another book, but I just know. You know when you know. This is, how do I even describe this book? A magnificent portrayal of the intersections of identity and a moving and hopeful story of a group of Black British women. Yeah, it's the story, it's a bunch of stories told in kind of vignettes that kind of connect to one another, and it's just about Black British womanhood and personhood, and I don't even know how to explain it except that. I just think it's a beautiful look at humanity, and yeah, I just really, really loved it. I think I will reread this many times. Also, it got soaking wet. I think I spilled water on it or something. I can't remember what exactly happened, but it's pretty tragic. And also you can see all of my tabs throughout it. Second to last one here, The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I think this is another one that might crop up in other people's favorites. This is the story of I don't know if he's middle-aged, but this man who's worked at this agency for about 17 years, and basically they go in to orphanages for magical beings and determine if they are fit to stay open, and how they're taking care of the people, the children, the magical young beings in these orphanages, and he determines whether or not they are doing a good job. And he is chosen to go on this mission to this orphanage that no one else would ever want to go to, because there's something so horrible there that no one else could like do it, essentially. And he goes there, and it's about his connection with these beings and the person who runs the orphanage, and it's just really beautiful and sweet and pure, and it feels very if you read the Wayward Children series, it has elements of that, or Douglas Adams even. I related it to the first chapter of Harry Potter, just kind of that like slight absurdity of it. I don't know, I really, really liked it. So this is something I think about a lot, and it's just very pure and happy. This is like the happiest book I've read in a while, I think. And the number 1 book, the top book, probably my favorite book of the year, probably a lot of people's favorite, or maybe disappointing least favorite, kind of a little polarizing, and that's The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I was actually sent a galley of this by the publisher, but I bought this UK edition because it's covered in forget-me-nots, which is just, I could cry thinking about it. It's also like a really small book for a hardcover. Anyway, if you somehow have managed to not hear about this book, by the way, look at that. Stunning. Stunning. So pretty. It's the story of Addie LaRue, who on the day of what would be her wedding, her unhappy wedding to someone she does not love, in like 1770s France, I think, she makes a deal with the devil, the god of darkness or something, and to live freely and to do whatever she wants. And basically it means she lives forever, but no one remembers her. Every time she encounters someone, they immediately forget her when she walks away. So she's doomed to a life of invisibility, basically. And then one day she goes to a bookstore, and then goes back to the bookstore and is remembered. And it follows that realization and that relationship that forms, and it's just beautiful. I mean, I don't even know what to say. I have not read, I've read very little V.E. Schwab, so I know a lot of people who read this and loved it or didn't love it are big fans of hers. I had very little expectations going in because I wasn't a diehard fan, and now I want to go back and read like all of her backlist because I thought this was so well written and charming and beautiful and sad, really sad, but also hopeful and good. just good. Loved it. I think this is now one of my favorite books of all time. I want to reread it soon. I think I want to do some rereading in 2021. You know, I haven't done that enough. I did that pretty fast. It's like 19 minutes. Nice. I also have noticed that my camera is going in and out of focus sometimes in videos, so if it did that in this, I'm sorry. I don't see very well, so I have a hard time seeing the view, like the screen. I also don't want to look at myself during videos, so anyway. Thank you so much for watching. Please tell me in the comments below what your favorite books are, if any of them, of 2020, if any of them were in these stacks, if any of these are on your to be read piles, anything like that, let me know down in the comments. And let me know what you're excited to read next year. I'm thinking of doing like a couple of personal challenges that I might make videos about, because I feel like my reading this year was so meandering. It was kind of just like random, and I'd like to have a little more focus in life. So might do something like that, but I will see you in the new year. Actually, I don't know if this will go up tonight. Probably not. This will probably go up tomorrow. Happy New Year. Goodbye.